Hello everyone, and welcome to His Author's Voice. I am the author Jack Sanger. I decided to start an occasional series of podcasts on the art of writing. That is everything from the mechanics to the inspiration, and including the mysterious alchemical processes of being a conduit for mysterious forces that guide your pen. The subject of this podcast is the sorcery of scribbling. In a blog many moons ago, I wrote about the creation of my trilogy, Azimuth. I was fascinated by the art of writing myself into knowledge. Since I placed the novel in ancient times and wasn't a historian, everything in the books came from my imagination. When I'd finished the 1,000 or so pages, I suddenly became concerned that the work might be embarrassing. What if I got my facts so badly wrong that people would laugh at the work? I would be a laughing stock. So I checked. It was amazing that my sure-footed imagination had dredged from somewhere a whole world that had, more or less, truly existed, as far as we know, in incredible detail. You can search through my early blogs on writing on the website to flesh it out, but the basic tenet is that writers are conduits to the shared experience of Homo sapiens. Mystics call it channeling, but that term may be a bit too mystical for me, I don't know. But then a while back, I podcasted about the mysterious experience of finding myself in Ghana and how some imperatives had drawn me there despite myself. It consisted of a series of synchronous events spread over time, each one in a blog, strange in themselves, portents, if you will. You can hear it on this podcast site under the title, I Could Have Been a Shaman, How Ghana Seduced Me. Well, I experienced much the same quivering notion of the occult sometimes later when I discovered the delights of OCR. For those of you who don't know, OCR is the computer software that recognizes scans of printed pages, even handwriting, and turns them into editable Word files. Now, in my writer's war chest, I have a number of novels. I always wrote even when leading a jolly academic career as a research professor. It was a necessary complement to the less glamorous life I was leading, probably. When I finished my novel about a superheroine in a dystopian future Britain, which is called A Woman Who Kills, also on the website, I turfed out one of these novels. It was typed and legible enough for OCR. 3 days later, I transcribed it into a Word file, and it's now called Hot Flushes, and deals with the vicissitudes of a group of overweight women and their husbands in Norwich, England. Middle-class angst, a dark comedy of manners. Well, it's on the site and you can read it. What is completely engrossing is that I hardly remembered writing it, had no idea of the plot, and found it a real revelation of life and mores in the early 1980s. I think it stands up as a sociological expose of those Thatcherite days, but segueing back to the beginning of this podcast, what is truly occult is that the names of the characters chosen at random when I was writing have all become key names amongst my friendships and associations, developed in the years since writing the book. Not only that, but all the issues about being overweight for a woman also, of course, became a burning issue. And then, those who followed my blogs would know, I married someone, Helen Teague, who designed clothes for large women and was in partnership with Dawn French, the comedian and writer. Imagine me, therefore, editing this novel, written by a former self some 30 years ago, and finding in its pages all sorts of foretellings of what since came to pass. Is that creepy or what? If you'd followed me on Twitter, you will know that I was on a crushingly tough course to bring original thought to issues that perplex us all. I did this for about 2 years. Every day I wrote a couple of mind-benders. I developed the art of reducing a complex concept to a few characters in such a way that their compression made people think. You develop the mental muscle to do this, but you have to do it over and over again in order to achieve the elegance that you want from an aphorism. There were two purposes in my doing it in the first place. The first was to persuade readers that my voice was intriguing, occasionally illuminating, and a good test as to whether my novels themselves would be worth reading. The second is that among my tweets are little adverts for my work. I hope they are sufficiently redolent of my other cryptic tweeting in their power to persuade. One tweet said, "Stereotyping is how society tailors you a straitjacket." Stereotyping is how society tailors you a straitjacket. Well, let's go on with that. Stereotyping is a massive element in our lives, far beyond race, gender, and religion. We are conditioned to present ourselves from nursery school to the grave with growing certainty and calling it maturity, as though we have discovered who we are and those around us can feel secure in our predictable identity. We learn to behave according to this template and find it extraordinarily difficult to do anything which contradicts it. Each time we try our society in the shape of friends, work colleagues and family to change, they push us back inside the casing we've developed. A great deal of literature concerns those individuals who break the mould or have it broken by events and then try to come to terms with the changes forced upon them. The change in a character gives the reader the opportunity to identify with and to play vicariously with projected changes in his or her own life. There must be a novel which focuses on completely uninteresting people doing completely uninteresting things. But unless it is a postmodern and unintentionally funny antithesis of the drama in normal literature, who among us would read it? Most of the characters in Azimuth undergo change, even the minor ones, and some undergo enormous geological disturbance. A minor character who brings an unearthly, sorcerous and mystifying colouring to the plot is my version of the old Lilith myth. If you don't know Lilith, it is worth researching her. She refused to lie down under Adam, being his first wife, and was booted out of Eden by God as a consequence. Since then, she's been blamed for much of the wanton mayhem that erupts in civilized society. I won't tell you who she is in Azimuth because the fact is disguised for much of the second book. I advertised her presence like this among my regular tweets on Twitter. In Hebrew texts, Lilith was Adam's first woman, bringing blood, chaos, and upheaval to humanity. She lives on in Azimuth. And then I give the link to my website. So there we are. It's a bit of a circuitous first podcast, but I hope there's enough in it to interest you and maybe to follow more of what I think and have to say about the art of writing. So that's all for now. I wish you well. Till next time, bye-bye.